Live from New York. I'm not going to say Saturday night. They're a bunch of livid cowards because they won't make fun of Biden. I mean, Mike, well, actually, you could have every night, you could have Monday Night Live, Tuesday Night Live, Wednesday Night Live, except it isn't funny. And Rudy, stop it. Several people have complained, and they're correct, and I apologize to them. And I apologize to myself. I do laugh at some of the things that he does, but they are deadly serious. I mean, the guy gets people killed. Well, the trip to Maui was best described. You know, I absolutely love headline writers, even though they've written some pretty bad headlines about me or some pretty good ones. But I love headline writers because I don't know if you know how important headlines used to be to the Daily News and the Post and the Daily Mirror. Those were the three tabloid papers in New York.
Why were they so important?
Because people bought newspapers, one major, maybe millions, right, going on the subway. So they wouldn't have it delivered to the home like we do now. Maybe the Times or the Herald Tribune or the Journal American, or of which the Brooklyn Eagle. People would buy their newspaper getting on the train. And the tabloid newspaper, I think, got developed because of the subway. It's hard to read a New York Times or a Wall Street Journal on the subway, right? Big, think about it. The big paper like that, I actually was taught by my sophomore year English teacher who insisted that we read the newspapers every day if we wanted to be literate. And he showed us how you read it on how to read the New York Times and Wall Street Journal on the subway, how to fold it. He went through a whole lesson. We all had to bring one into school, and he showed us how to do it. But still, it's a little unwieldy because it's so big. So the tabloid newspapers that open like this were very preferred by most subway riders. Big competition. Originally, the competition was between the Daily News and the Daily Mirror. And they would sell their papers off the headline because the guy be walking by real fast. He'd look at two headlines and he'd go with the headline that was the most interesting. I mean, the Daily News headline, that's the, Ford to city, go to hell. That's the one with Carmine Galante dead, a mafia hit with a cigar in his mouth, boom, which I will tell you is not real. It was put there by a cop.
By a cop or the newspaper man?
The photographer gave the cop a few bucks and the cop put the thing in his thing. I mean, his great headlines. One I liked the best was Rudy wins. Well, Rudy landslide wasn't bad either. A few others you don't want to know. But the headlines were the big thing. And I love the headline writers because they got to get it, Hardest thing to do is to be concise, right? You got to be concise in a newspaper article anyway, when we used to have like real journalists. But the headline then itself is tough. Now look at this one. I want you to go to my favorite machine. Look at that headline in the Post. I mean, the Post has the best headline writers now. Not even a contest with the news. Post is like number one in the country for headline writers. Prez motorcade faces wrath of Maui survivors. So the president graciously took a few hours from his endless vacation on the beach, where I think he has made, I am told he has actually successfully completed 32 sandcastles. However, they are somewhat criticized. They have the complexity of about a 4-year-old. So he's got to get back, to work on his sandcastles. So he spent a little time in the no comment place where he didn't remember the name when he was in Washington. I don't know if I remember hearing him say Maui while he was there. He might have trouble pronouncing it, but he couldn't remember the name when he was in America. And of course, he went there with not a good pedigree. He no commented the death of over 100 people twice. So let's look at the gravity of this. It went on for 10 days, and this idiot sat on a beach for 10 days and didn't say a damn thing. It's the largest fire in 100 years, I think, in the United States, but certainly in Hawaii. I mean, in terms of fatalities, it's over 100 and rising. I mean, it's unthinkable that a president wouldn't comment on it, much less go there. And then when he gets to comment on it, he says no comment. And then when he's asked about it again, 2 days, he doubles down on it, says no comment. And when he says he's going there, he says, I'm going to that island that you see on television. And he tells the story insensitively of how his wife almost died in a fire. We went back and got the fire was described by the fire department in Delaware, who he appropriately credits with great courage and heroism. I'm not sure they would accept that because they describe the fire as insignificant. Now, I don't know how you almost die in an insignificant fire.
It's probably a stovetop fire, Mayor. That's
it. Was.
That's all.
Well, that's what it was.
Yeah, that's all it was.
But
Could be with an extinguisher, you're done. That's
what the report says.
Nothing comparable to
but can you imagine the insult to these people?
That's insane.
He's got a stupid little stovetop fire, and he's comparing it to 110 people.
He had a grease fire.
People are dying as he's talking. This is the same thing that he did with the people who died. People died in Afghanistan, that he got killed. He goes ahead and he tells them that his son died in the line of duty. They all know that's a big lie. Now, everybody sympathizes with him, with his son dying, although I think really we've sympathized with him so much, we've kind of run out of it. But we certainly would still sympathize with what happened to Bo. My goodness, the poor man died of cancer. But when you go tell people that just lost someone, really because of your incompetence, that your son died on the battlefield, I don't know what you call that. What do you call that?
Stolen valor.
A sin?
Stolen valor.
Sacrilege? You call it a sacrilege, maybe? I don't know. What you call it somebody who has no feeling for people. Probably, I think you'd say a pathological narcissist. And before he went, somebody warned, and this was on one of the communist stations that I was listening to. They were commenting on, should he go or shouldn't he go at this point? You know, does it look like he's just responding to pressure? And they said, well, he should go, but he really can't go and just talk about himself. Well, of course, that's exactly what he did. He went, he talked about himself, he lied. He couldn't remember the name of I guess it was the governor or the senator who was a football player. Couldn't remember what team he played for. You think somebody would write it down for him, but maybe he can't read it. And he once again went ahead with the insulting, lying story. Do we have that, Ted? Is it ready or should I?
Yeah,
sure.
let's play it.
Well, let's just play it because I don't know. Watch him too. You tell me if you don't think he's getting much worse.
Jill and I, what it's like to lose a home. Years ago, now 15 years ago, I was in Washington doing Meet the Press. It was a sunny Sunday, and lightning struck at home on a little lake. It's outside of our home, not a lake, a big pond, and hit a wire and came up underneath our home into the heating ducts, the air conditioning duct. To make a long story short, I almost lost my wife, my 67 Corvette, and my cat. But all kidding aside, I watched the firefighters.
How do you lie about almost losing your wife? How do you do that? I mean, do you realize that this man is, I mean, we talk about liars, right? I don't know. I guess in some form or another, most people lie, and they can be anywhere from somewhat acceptable social lies or even polite lies, like, you know, do I look fat? No. Do I look ugly? No. To vicious, malicious, criminal lies. There's something about this, and I'm having a hard time describing it because it takes my breath away in a certain way, that he says these things. Now, it is true he did a lot of this before he got demented. But I think this is even more. He had to have been told on the way there that that story is being contradicted by contemporary newspaper articles. And he either went ahead and did it like, I don't give a damn, or he couldn't remember. It's like the one about his son, which he keeps telling, just did the other day, that his son died in the line of duty. My goodness, his son died and everybody would sympathize with him for it. But they get pretty annoyed when you lie to them. And then they get really annoyed when you try to equate your loss with theirs. I also think bringing the cat, or not the cat, but yeah, the cat and the car in. We got a real wacko here, don't we? And we got a president who's wacko. What do you do about a president that's wacko?
You impeach him.
You remove him. Well, you can impeach him, sure. Although I don't think being crazy is an impeachable offense. You remove him under the 25th Amendment. We put an amendment in just for this purpose. And then do we have the one where he said about about Mayor Richard Bisson that he looked like he played defensive tackle for I don't know who, but somebody good?
What? What?
And then he made a joke. You want to grab that water for a sip? You want to grab that water for a sip? And started laughing. Well, according to state legislator Cornelia Ng, she says, I campaign for you. Now when I lose dozens of my friends, family, and friends, this? Dean Fuchs, the president, kind of late, don't you think? When he was asked about the disaster in Maui, he said no comment. That was disrespectful to the people of Maui who have lost so much. We're here to send the president a message that we're displeased with the federal response. That fire was a small kitchen blaze in 2004, which the fire department says, quote, could be considered an insignificant fire because it was put out immediately. According to the AP report, the small fire that was contained to the kitchen was put out almost immediately. Well, I don't know. Maybe it almost killed Jill, the small fire that was put out immediately, and the cat, and it almost destroyed the car. Or the president is lying, or the president is demented. Pick.
Maybe Corn Pop lit that fire, Mayor, in
Yeah, that's
revenge.
what-
In revenge.
Yeah.
Because Joe beat him up behind the barn. So Corn Pop came in the house and lit that fire.
I mean, let's
Come on. Come on.
So, but let's not worry. You can't cause too much damage. Take a look at that. He's there now. See? Lake Tahoe. We got Lake Tahoe up there, Ted. He's off there at Lake Tahoe. I don't know if they have a beach there. They do. They have a lake and a beach. Maybe he can make sandcastles there. I would not recommend that he bet. He better not do it with our money. Because I'm not trusting him at a craps table. Are you?
Doesn't even know what crap.
You imagine what the craps players would do? Because you know they hate it when an amateur messes up there. I can remember a few times sitting at one of those tables and I would try to play. You know, I'd take a card and they look at me like, you screwed everything up. I don't even know how I can screw it up for anybody else. But I got tired of playing because I'm just not good. And some of my friends were like fabulous. They would get annoyed because I'd mess them up. You know who was a great craps player? I used to go there and watch him. John McCain.
Oh, wow.
John was good. I mean, by good, I mean, he lost ultimately, but he reduced the odds.
Mm.
If you're skilled, I'm not even talking about card counting. I'm talking about knowing the odds really, really well and then playing them. And also, if not card counting, having a good recollection of the cards that are out and therefore the odds that a certain card will show up. If you've got that kind of ability to concentrate, you can be good at the game. And he was John was really, really good at playing it, and he enjoyed it. And he wasn't like what would you call it? I guess they call it a degenerate gambler who spends money he doesn't have. He pretty much.
Well, Mayor, if you told Joe Biden we're going to the craps table, he would probably pull his pants down and take a crap on the table because that's how that's how demented he is. I mean, let's be real,
don't
right?
say that.
He crapped his pants in front of the Pope. I mean, what's stopping him at the crap? What's stopping him at the craps table, right?
Lucky we have an adult audience. We do warn you that we are a very realistic show. We tell the truth. Is it really now? Is that confirmed, or is that confirmed that he pooped in front of the Pope? Is that really true?
They said he had an emergency and he had to leave.
Well, that one I've never gone with as a. I mean, it's not in my RICO case. Nor, I guess for Fannie Willis, that would be a RICO. It'd be a RICO act.
Maybe Joe Biden's having too much balance of nature. Maybe he's too regular, Mayor.
Well, you wouldn't get it from the. You wouldn't get it from. Let me have those. You wouldn't get it from the veggies.
No.
Or from the. Now, give me the other.
Probably the fiber and spice.
The fiber, but you'd have to take the whole damn thing.
Listen.
I mean, you have to take this. You got to know. This is hard to have a conversation about. You have to know like I kind of like need to use. Never mind. It's good.
Promo code Rudy.
Promo code Rudy.
$35 off.
And in my case, I need to take 2 helpings. You probably should take only 1. And it will make you regular. And being regular is actually very, very good for you. Very, very good. I mean, it cleans you out. And this is the real key. You don't get enough fruits and vegetables. You don't want to end up like Biden. If you have your fruits, you have your vegetables. Exercise your mind. Don't become an automaton where you have people tell you what to do. Like him all his life. Think independently. You could do something he doesn't do. You could read for yourself. Don't just depend on what I tell you. If I show you, see all these articles? I get up at 5:30 in the morning. I read them all. I mean, I read many more than these. These are the ones that I keep. I've been doing it since I was a kid. My mother taught me to do it. My mother and father used to pass the paper back and forth. I mean, we'd get like, my grandmother, who never went to school in America, she went to school in Italy, and she taught herself English, and she'd read the American papers. And she had lost her Italian accent. Both grandmothers lost their Italian accent, even though they were born in Italy. But they came from the generation of, they didn't teach their kids Italian. You learned English. You're American now. My grandfather used to get really upset with what they used to call in those days goombas, because they were always used to talk about, it was so much nicer back in Italy. He would say, yeah, go back. yeah, you like it so much? I get you a ticket. Go back. Had no problem at all when his sons went off to fight against Italy. His hatred for Mussolini. I just grew up in a very patriotic family, which was wonderful. I just appreciate it so much. Now, I want you to look at this picture. Okay, I hope we have it the right way. It could be backwards. That is the Trump wall. And yesterday they had a big ceremony. They opened the walls to the border that Mayorkas says is closed. Hey, Mayorkas, take a look. The doors are open. Are you dopey or a liar? You're a liar. Oh, yeah. Look at this. Now, look at this. This raises some very interesting issues. Like, first of all, it's about as good an indication of what we know anyway, that the border is open as hell. Not only that, we are now trying to stop Abbott from stopping people from coming in. And I have been told on very, very good authority from Border Patrol people directly that they are required to help people come in. Now, I'm not going to tell you they all do it. I'm not going to tell you who doesn't. But they think, in a way, one of them described it to me like being a Nazi prison guard. Now, it isn't the same thing because they're not being told to kill people, but he means it in this sense. Do I follow an order to help people come in when it's illegal for them to come in? Now, it is illegal under the new regulations because if they want asylum, they are supposed to apply in advance. So you can presume they're illegal. And of course, only about 3% of those asylum applications ever turned out to be valid anyway. So this little group, who I haven't talked to directly, but I've talked to some of the people around them, have a moral dilemma, which is, do we enforce an illegal order or not? It's easier said than done, not. I mean, you got family, you get fired, they don't put it that way. They make other charges against you that sound a lot more serious. I mean, when a law enforcement agency turns crooked, and I don't say that they have, I don't think they have actually, but it's beginning. I mean, the FBI thing is starting to, but look at those walls, wide open. They just opened the doors. Now, isn't that interesting? If the Trump wall was so useless and ineffective, what do you have to open the doors for? I'll just leave it there. I mean, they just go right over it. Didn't do anything. They opened the doors because it does keep people out. And I don't know if you could get a better visual that we no longer have a border, which you could argue we no longer have a country. Particularly America, which is built on shared values. We have no idea who's coming into the United States. We don't vet them. I'm not sure how many of them we even get to see. And when we do see them, it's nothing but a cursory little review. Now you think, well, it's a random group of people. Like hell it is. I interviewed a guy who spent his life enforcing the law along the border, who is really quite a hero today on my radio show. And I just really had him say what I know from hundreds and hundreds of people and of my own knowledge. And that is, if you go on the other side of the border, if we were able to take a good trip along the other side, let's say a helicopter trip, along the Mexican side of the border, you would see large numbers of people gathered at various points, sometimes in structures that are built, sometimes in structures that are tents, and sometimes just out in the open. They are the toll booth operators. You do go through a toll booth to come into the United States. You go through a toll booth that is erected by the Mexican cartels. They select who comes into this country. Now, we're not talking about 10 people. Since Biden's been in office, bare minimum that have come in that we have seen and touched in some way is about 4 million. Estimate is that at least double that number came in and nobody touched them except the Mexican cartel on the other side. So let's say we're dealing with 7 million people. The only people know who they really are is the Mexican cartel. So I'm not going to condemn all of them as criminals. They're probably not. But don't you think they disproportionately are? Mexican cartels, this is how they make their living. They don't make their living by letting, a nice little family come in that want a little home in the suburbs and work. They make their living by letting people come in who are bringing fentanyl in to slaughter Americans, to benefit, among others, China, for which they make billions. They make their money from child trafficking. So they accommodate the child trafficking networks in bringing people across the border. Not only that, they themselves engage in child trafficking. And if you come across the border, and let's say you are a family seeking a better way of life, and you have a wife, and you got a kid, and you got 2 daughters, and Price may be one of your daughters. You don't have any money. They're going to try to hold you up for money, but they see a young girl. When I say young, I mean like 4, 5, 6 years old. It could be. They snatch her. You think I'm making this up? Please don't. I know. The left wing in Hollywood did a number on that movie. But that was just one small, tiny part of what's been going on for years. I did a thing on child trafficking and human trafficking. Gosh, it was over 2 years ago, and it was at record levels under Biden then. And the reason it's at record levels under Biden as fentanyl is because of what I just showed you. The border is wide open. Also, it's used by ISIS. We have apprehended in the last year more suspected terrorists than I think in the last 8 or 10 years combined, something like that. So now again, you got to do a little thinking, which of course Biden can't do, and the Democrats try to get you not to do, because if you think, you're going to throw him out of office. If we're apprehending more of them, it also means more of them are coming in that aren't apprehended, because you really do have to be safe, calculate about at least 1 for 1. For every 1 we stop, 1 gets through. And as the numbers get larger, meaning as the 200,000 that used to come in becomes the 1 million that's now coming in, it strains our resources to such an extent that every expert will tell you whatever formulas we had in the past, and it was 1 for 1, basically, gets exaggerated. In other words, 1 for 1 becomes 2 for 1 or 3 for 1, because we just don't have the people to go look. We don't look. We don't care. So I want you to put yourself in the place of a terrorist or a child trafficker or a drug dealer. And you have all these people coming over not being detected. You'd be a fool not to take advantage of it, wouldn't you? This is like a gift. You can come into my country because I'm so damn stupid that I'm for open borders, because I don't realize we live in an evil world. I am giving you the best interpretation possible. But then you're really not adult enough to govern, which is why you shouldn't elect progressive Democrats. The best thing you can say about them is they're not adult enough to govern. They're disorganized. You should all come to New York and you'll get education. They don't want education, jerk. Healthcare, maybe. Money, yeah. Jobs. We're not coming for jobs. We're coming to sell drugs, jackass. But okay, jobs. When he was saying that, he made New York the Uber sanctuary city, over and above Chicago, over and above Philadelphia, over and above Boston. So he's got numbers that dwarf them. And he blaming it on Abbott. I'm going to show you another picture. Here's a guy who made it one of the first guys through the open door. Notice the T-shirt? What does it say? Can you read it, Ted?
I cannot. No.
Okay, you see it on the screen? It says New York. He's wearing a New York T-shirt. He knows where he's going.
Hold it up.
This is thanks to the advertising of Mayor Adams. Best place to come is New York. Get more benefits, do better. Now, he's blaming it on everybody else. He does have a right to blame it on Biden. I mean, it wouldn't happen at all. I mean, if this door were closed and there was an agent there with a gun, this wouldn't happen, right? But once it happens, he hardly can complain too much because he's asking for the guy to come to New York. And then he wants other people to take them off his hands. So he goes around. New York City is a different kind of jurisdiction. New York is organized into counties. And the chief executive officer is the county executive. The mayor is, in essence, the county executive of 5 counties. But in most cases, it's 1 county. So many of them are Republicans. Most of the counties are Republican, even though, the gross numbers turn out to be very Republican. The rural counties that are small tend to be Republican. And they have basically told them to go to hell, right? You wanted them. We know who they are. We're just not taking disproportionate number of criminals into our community. But the very nice guy in Buffalo, Erie County, is a Democrat. And he decided to take some of these people that want to come to New York. The bus gets there. I'm not even sure the bus got a chance to stop. They had already raped 2 young girls. Well, Buffalo went nuts. The county executive went nuts. He put them back on the bus and he told Adams what to do with them. This is predictable to a man of common sense, which will tell you what Adams is. He's a man without common sense. And so is Biden. And as long as they keep it up, we're gonna this idea that they had lowered the numbers coming in last month was a record. It's gone up. We're probably going to break our record for people dying of fentanyl, directly attributable to this. If you voted for Biden, would you please do me a favor? I'm not doing this to make you feel better, tell you how many smarter than you are. Or I just had information that I tried my damnedest to get out, and they tried their damnedest, and they're still doing it to put me in jail. The U.S. attorneys have investigated me for 3 years and came to the conclusion that I didn't commit any crimes, but that didn't stop them. You probably don't even know that because the New York Times wrote a story about this big, about that part. This big. I think that they used their light print for no in front of crime.
So, Mayor, since in 2023, as of June 30th, 70,600 people died of fentanyl overdose.
As of when?
As of June 30th, 2023.
So that's half of the year.
Right.
So we're going to go to 140.
Well, that's actually since 2021.
Oh,
since
okay.
2021.
So we had 100,000 last year. We had 100,000 overdoses. About 70,000 of fentanyl.
These are deaths. Yeah.
Yeah,
actual
we had
deaths.
70,000 were attributed to fentanyl last year.
Right.
So we'll see. Look, what's the difference? Is 60,000 or 80,000 or 70?
It should be zero. It should be zero.
Oh, yeah. I mean, come on. And it's a really, any death is awful, but it's kind of a great deal of inequity to it in the sense that when we thought of drug overdoses, more often than not, we thought of people who were like Hunter Biden, like degenerate drug users who take massive amounts of drugs. He is. I mean, let's face it. He is not a normal drug user, if there is a normal drug user. This guy is not like a social drug user. The guy sits in a closet all day, fills it up with crack smoke, walks around a house with little children in it and smokes it. He's so out of control. Drives automobiles smoking it. He's a degenerate, massive drug addict. Those are the people that you usually thought of as the people who had overdoses. Now some kid can buy marijuana, and it's happened. I don't say all the time, but it's happened. And they lace it with just a teeny bit too much fentanyl, and the kid is dead. There's more than a few cases like that. There's actually one marijuana dealer who lost like half of her customers over a weekend because she got a bad dose. I think that was in St. Louis. So with all this stuff about, oh, marijuana is great, use marijuana, we're gonna make a fortune from marijuana. What a terrible, terrible thing that's become. And is there anybody ready to rethink it? Anybody adult enough, kind enough, humble enough to say, gee, that was a terrible mistake? We're seeing these people dropping like flies now. And maybe the fact that we enabled it, maybe the fact that we are enabling it, maybe the fact that in New York we got places where you can go and get free needles, places where you can go and get free pipes, places where you can go if you have an overdose and they'll take care of you. Maybe that, maybe that, if that's all that we did. You shouldn't want people to die, but giving them the implements to take drugs, that's called enabling. In any drug rehabilitation, psychiatrist, psychologist would tell you there's only one way to stop drug addiction, and that's you got to put limits. You got to say no. Now, societally, we say yes, and we have a massive societal problem. So let's take a short break and right back, and then we'll figure out which one we're doing, and they'll tell me, and we'll talk about it a little.
The year is 2022. Cancel culture is the new normal. Online freedom as we know it has ended. Digital stockades are here. All activity is monitored, stored, and predictively analyzed by a technological cartel. We're being converted into a digital resource, a digital currency to be farmed for metadata and loaded into a computerized combine, blockchained to a social engineering operating system. However, it doesn't have to be this way. Be part of a new technological revolution. Right now, 1,000 test pilots have launched themselves into a new digital frontier, a private network outside of big tech control. New technology with state-of-the-art digital engagement and never-done-before security and privacy features that are now operational. With Quick's digital engagement, entertainment, communication, and commercial exchange will never be the same. We are QUX. Quick's. Advanced pre-release sales are limited to 3,000. Order now by visiting quicks.tv. Get yours now before they sell out. Be part of a brand new online experience that you control.
Do you see that picture? What a cunning disguise. Oh, he's smooth, that guy. He's smooth. What a smooth criminal. You know, the one thing that was missing for his RICO case, big 30-year RICO enterprise case, like a real one, not like the stupid idiot that Fanny, whatever her name is, Fanny, did in Georgia for election irregularities into RICO. We never had 8 KAs for him. I never did a RICO case against organized criminals that didn't have AKAs. Now we got a bunch of them. And look at that disguise. I mean, you could never tell that was him, right? Right? Look at that. Looks a little like Detective Clouseau, except he's dumber. Remember what an idiot Clouseau was? He's even dumber. There he is. Hey, let's get the names here. Show it to Getter. There's your president. Well, that may not be your president. It could be Robert L. Peters. That could be Robert L. Peters. Or it could be, let's see, who else do we have here? We have Robin Ware and J.R.B. Ware. And the best one of all, the one that I put first because I'm used to doing mafia indictments, the big guy, the one that got half the money. They said 10% there, but Hunter corrected it. The big guy gets 50% of everything I earn, but the press doesn't care. They don't care if America's crooked and corrupt. No, nor does David Weiss, for that matter. Most amazing thing in all of this that's come out, David Weiss wasn't going to indict him for anything. And his substitute was anything, was a little bit more than anything, which was nothing. He was going to do this plea agreement. He's going to take a really major gun count. I mean, the tax counts are not nearly as serious as the gun count. I want you to think about the gun count for a minute. We have a law, and it's a serious one. It's a 10-year felony because we don't want drug addicts carrying around guns. And we don't want mentally ill people carrying around guns. And we don't want criminals carrying around guns. And that is a staple of gun control, which will save America. Every time there's a murder of any kind, you got them coming out of walls, right? You got Schumer, and you got Biden, and you got this one, and you got Pelosi comes in and scares the kids and gets on television. You got Hillary, gun control. We need more gun control. Don't do anything about the shooters or the killers. Let them out on the street. But get the guns, it's the guns. Shouldn't be in the hands of criminals or mentally defective people or drug addicts.
Don't liberals know that the guns that the criminals have are illegal? They're not legal guns. Do they know this? They're being smuggled in through Mexico and other channels.
Haven't you learned that liberals
they don't know anything, Mayor? It's very crazy.
That you could write that. That could be a quote for you that you could use very effectively. Liberals don't know anything.
100% of gun crimes in New York City.
They shouldn't be allowed to be responsible for other people. It's a sin.
Right.
But the reality is that we have a law that makes it a crime for a drug addict to carry a gun. Now, they let him off that one because they wanted to show leniency because he was a drug addict. But think of how illogical that is, and think of how perverse that is. Think of how crooked the law exists for a drug addict, and they're gonna take him off the hook because he is a drug addict. Now, I can see a rationale for that if he was like a modest, small, tiny little drug addict, poor little drug addict. This guy could be one of the biggest drug addicts in the country. Not only that, he's an irresponsible drug addict. He drives automobiles. He smokes it around kids. Psychiatrists wanted him removed from the house, but Grandpop didn't care because Grandpop doesn't care about his grandchildren. We know that. If it could hurt his political career. And they're gonna give him a deferred prosecution, which is what you do with a juvenile. And then they were going to let him walk on the most minor tax counts they could come up with, which the objection to it was they shouldn't have been crimes. Well, that's right. They shouldn't have been because they were so minor. But there were really big ones that could have been used. And the story that we had was that Weiss at least wanted to go with this and went to the prosecutors to do the, and it turns out that Weiss wasn't going to do anything if the whistleblowers hadn't put pressure on him. And now we find out that Weiss, who every time you heard about Weiss, Wasn't there like a Democratic required introduction, right? It's like when they used to say, when I first brought out that Biden was involved in a big bribe in Ukraine, they had one answer to it. It was debunked. 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 So I asked, actually, at one point, I asked one of them to give me the debunking report. It was not debunked. As we now know, it was never investigated. And the guy investigating it got fired. And all that horseshit about him being corrupt. You got a tape between Biden and Poroshenko, where Poroshenko makes it clear they had to make it all up. You know, Karl Rove, and I didn't get a chance to correct it on Newsmax. Karl Rove today said one of the really convincing you that these guys in Washington, they just, I mean, I don't know if they read. Karl Rove said today, well, Shokin did have a background where all the European countries wanted him removed because he wasn't moving on Burisma. Now, that is complete horseshit, made up by Soros. It's documented, Carl. You hate Trump so much, you don't bother to read that phony board of yours. Why don't you put it on the board? Maybe you'll realize it. There was not a single allegation of corruption against Shokin at the time that he was fired. Poroshenko tells that to Biden, and they got to make it up. And they use Soros's NGOs in different countries to do it. They become the people who put out the allegations of corruption. And why would Italy or Albania or care if there was a crooked prosecutor? They've got their own crooked prosecutors. Are you kidding me? Are you that big a jackass that you buy that? That the European countries complained about it? First of all, they'd have to complain about every prosecutor in Europe. Half of them are taking fortunes. Did you ever take a look at how Shokin lives? Little house, small car. If he is corrupt, it ain't big time, babes. But you just shoot your big fat mouth off without knowing. And you're a Republican. Also, he wasn't investigating Burisma. Why don't you check that out? On February 2nd, he executed a massive warrant on Burisma and closed him down. He wasn't investigating them. He was crushing them. Wow. It's like the Lincoln Project. Boy, they're another group that lies and lies, or they're lazy and they buy all the Democrat crap. I just was so disgusted with Karl Rove today, with buying that Shokin. With all the European organizations were disappointed with how slowly he was going on Burisma, and they wanted him removed. They wouldn't give a damn. They wouldn't care one bit about Burisma, whether he was going slow or fast. That was all contrived. Okay, maybe you didn't know that 3 years ago. But now it's a matter of record. It's even in recordings you can go listen to. If you don't go with the deep state, rich men north of Virginia spin, Carl. So you can go to the cocktail parties with all those phonies who sell out our country. Well, we'll take a short break and we'll give you something. Towers Foundation delivers on its promise to do good and never forget the sacrifices America's greatest heroes have made for us. Heroes who risked their lives to keep our communities and our country safe. Heroes like United States Marine Corps Captain and Pilot John Jeremy Sachs. Captain Sachs sustained fatal injuries when his military aircraft crashed during training, killing him and 5 other service members. He's remembered by loved ones as courageous, brilliant, and devoted to his career, family, and friends. Sean is survived by his wife, Amber, who gave birth to their second daughter 3 months after his death. Tunnel to Towers paid the mortgage on the family home for Amber and their 2 daughters. The foundation has helped over 1,000 military and first responder families navigate the worst of times by removing the burden of a mortgage payment. Our nation's heroes and their families need your help now more than ever. Donate $11 a month to Tunnel to Towers at T2T.org. T2T.org. That's T, the number 2T.org. T2T.org. Please donate now. Oh, sorry. I forgot.
Mother's here.
Hey, doctor,
Take your balance of nature.
I fell asleep.
That's because you need fruits and vegetables.
I didn't even know. I think I was
Dr. Maria is
think I
here.
was
Fruits
snoring.
and vegetables.
I was even snoring. It was so bad.
Excuse
A little bit.
Yes. Oh, you already did it. So 35% off. Go to Balance of Nature. Percent off.
That's right.
And you will
Code
not
Rudy.
fall asleep in the middle of a show.
Yeah, that's right.
Great.
My pillow, slippers, blanket, whatever. They have everything.
Okay.
All of it. So
So what?
Now,
we're talking
tomorrow
debates?
night, we're going to have an interesting show.
Yeah.
We want you to listen in.
Ted and
because
I are watching the debate.
We're going to have a little panel discussion. We're going to split up into 2 groups.
Yep.
Watch the panel discussion, watch the debate. And then we're going to bring them all together and we're going to discuss it afterwards with you.
Andrew's watching President Trump with Tucker. And
You're going to watch
I'm
the
going to
debate.
watch the debate with Theodore.
And I think Mike is going to watch.
Mike, what are you watching?
Mike's got a boxing match.
no, I watch.
Oh,
it doesn't matter.
Mike!
Doesn't matter. I can still watch whatever you want me to watch, Mayor. The
Are you an
MMA
egg and hammer
doesn't
like
matter.
Rocky?
Yeah, you're going to watch. You're going to watch. Well, then we'll have you watch with Andrew, and I'll go back and forth.
Yeah.
Like the
problem.
monitor.
Yeah.
No
Like the
problem.
whole monitor. Make sure everybody's paying attention.
Did we find out if it's 1 hour or 2 hours? It must be 2
An hour and a
hours.
half.
The debate is 2.
Yeah, Andrew said they did a 2-hour block,
boy.
so it's probably because there's
I'll make sure
how many
nobody falls
candidates?
asleep. I'll be giving out
8 candidates.
balance
Yeah.
in nature to make sure nobody falls asleep.
Yeah, there's 8 qualified candidates for the debate, so it's going to be a
Well,
very
I don't know-
very
I don't-
long
I
debate.
don't know if they're
Yeah.
really 8.
Well,
Yeah.
quote unquote qualified.
Do you know Larry Elder is thinking about suing because of
They want him
the
on.
criteria? He can't make the criteria, and
don't
he
get the
thinks he should
criteria.
still debate. And I think they all should debate. You know what I even think? Crazy Dr. Maria here. I want RFK on that stage.
Well, I think that'd be great.
That'd be pretty funny.
No, a lot of people agree with that.
Yeah.
He's pretty much.
And you'd
Republican.
probably have to let Williamson on too. She's
Yeah.
a real bore.
You know,
Ugh.
the last time she ran, I saw her on a couple of conservative shows, and she commented
Yeah, but she
the
keeps-
nicest people in the media were the conservatives, and that the Democrats
Oh,
wouldn't
I
even
like it
have
now.
them
I didn't
on
know
her
that. Now I
show.
like it.
That was the last
See how
time
fast
she
I
ran.
changed?
I literally have not even seen her
No, I
on
think she-
anything.
Isn't she a little spacey though? Hey guys, she's being nice. Isn't Williamson a little spacey? Don't I have the right person?
Yeah.
Okay. So here, first question I have for my experts here is this. So they're up there. Trump is off talking to Carlson. So they have.
Pre-recorded.
So the real leader here is Trump. They got to be Trump, right?
Right.
But the leader on the stage
It's still
is
DeSantis.
DeSantis. So
Yep.
the general wisdom is they're going to go after DeSantis. But what use is that if you beat DeSantis and what are you fighting for second? Shouldn't they be going after Trump?
A lot of people are saying this is the vice president debate tomorrow. So-
Well, I think that's true for some.
I-
But that's,
I-
I mean, that's not true for Christie.
no.
No.
Or I don't think for Haley. I mean, I think she's been too critical.
Well, DeSantis and Trump can't be on the same ticket. One has to move out of the state.
Well, they could do that. They could accomplish that.
Right. They could figure it out at some point. But yeah.
Trump could just
I
declare-
don't know if
Yeah.
What do you think? Who, so,
things are too.
Yeah. I don't know.
Broken
I don't
between
think
the two
DeSantis
of
and
them.
Trump are going to be a
Yeah.
good ticket.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know who I'm surprised about is Nikki Haley. Nikki Haley was the first one to announce. She's literally been in New Hampshire since the beginning, and she cannot move the
what's she got,
needle.
about 4 or 5%? there?
Yep, still 4%. And the ones that are making the biggest dent. Now, let me clarify that DeSantis came in at a certain level and has stayed at a certain level. Basically,
He
the
went
number
down,
2
actually.
spot. Yeah, he went down a little bit. But the ones that keep moving in New Hampshire anyway is Chris Christie and Vivek Ramaswamy.
And they're very different, aren't they?
Very, very different.
One is very aggressive and kind of nasty, and the other guy is very cerebral.
I think
Excellent.
people relate better to Vivek.
In New Hampshire, I would think. In particular-
Anywhere.
We-
But
you know,
New
what-
Hampshire is surprising me with Chris Christie,
No,
actually.
but you have to have a few wild and crazy people.
Yeah.
Vivek goes off of factual knowledge.
Yeah.
That's why people relate to him. Like
I
he's not.
have to ask
yeah.
him about this Israel thing because
Right.
Newsmax was reporting today that he said all aid to Israel was going to end in 2028.
He said, I read the quote last night. He said he would respect Obama's whatever Obama did with Israel till 2028, and then he'll reassess after. So he
Oh,
didn't necessarily.
okay, so
say
it's
he's
taken
gonna
out of
end-
context.
You know what might be
Correct.
worse than
Right.
that?
What's that?
How absolutely amateurish and stupid it is for a Republican candidate in a Republican debate to say he's going to respect something Obama did. Now, that will tell you
That's true.
the guy looked like he was infallible,
Oh, I know.
but he's not. He's a rookie.
I'm like, I almost
He's a
had my
rookie. He's
ballot
not
out
ready.
with the check mark.
Vivek, my question
Vivek
about
like cake.
my question when we first met him was very smart, very interesting, going to raise a lot of issues. But I predicted to you, Ted, he would make a rookie mistake.
You did, I remember.
I didn't realize it'd be this big. This
This
is
is
a
a
big
big one.
mistake. I'm going to tell
That's
you why it's a
huge.
big one. Here's what you try to do in your first race.
You don't understand foreign policy.
You
if you don't
try
support Israel.
and make a good name for yourself. Come up with a good number and don't leave any residue. He left a boom. He left a lot of residue, particularly with a party that is closely aligned with Israel. And you don't think about just the Jewish vote. You got to
No.
remember our Christian, a lot of the Christian
Yeah.
vote.
Well, it used to be
Is as
bipartisan.
dedicated- Well,
If not more, some of them are more.
when I would
Yeah.
go to Christian meeting the Christian and Jews, the Christians were more pro-Israel than a lot of the Jews.
And in the past, it was both Democrat and Republican
well-
who understood the importance of Israel. The only place for freedom, our only ally in the Middle East,
This is real.
our only one is
It
Israel.
also tells me he was never in the federal government because he has no
Well, that's one
idea
good
what
thing.
Israel does for us.
Yeah.
I have every
Well-
idea what Israel
Well,
does
I
for
was
us.
never with the
Well,
federal
which I
government,
can't
and
tell
I
you,
think
right.
I understand it.
This is a terrible mistake. Unless he clarifies it,
Yeah.
ain't
You
no
know
way
it'll
I'd
be
ever vote
asked.
for him for anything.
It will be asked. Martha McCallan is going to ask them.
Well,
He's
Mayor,
got to. The rookie's got to explain it.
it seems to be in New York City that the Hasidic Jews are more aligned with Republicans when it comes to Israel, and the regular, like, the traditional Jewish people, they don't really care. That's why most of them are Democrat. They're
This isn't
not
about the Jewish people.
No, I'm just saying that he'll lose Hasidic votes, and
He's gonna lose
that's not good.
He's
Yeah,
gonna-
yeah.
I would say if you were to ask Republicans how they feel about Israel, probably somewhere around 70% are very strong supporters of Israel. Not Jewish. Republicans. They have been since Reagan. Reagan's support of Israel was, I don't care about this is not about the Jewish vote. It's about the fact they're our best friend.
Yeah, amen.
And then if you've had experience in the government, you know
I
what they
predict
do for us.
that America's Mayor Live is going to do a live show in Israel within the next 6 months. I
Good.
predict
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, I think that the Republican Party
I
has
love
become
Israel. Love
the
Israel.
party that is aligned with Israel, and the Democratic Party is too afraid to stand up to the squad. I
They do.
mean, well, he hides on Israel. It's
And
tragic.
Schumer's Jewish, which
Yeah.
is
Well,
crazy.
it's tragic. It's tragic.
crazy. It's
It's
tragic.
crazy. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So, who do they go?
That go after there'll be two people that obviously Chris Christie, but I think like you take a person like Vivek, he's America First policies. He really respects President Trump. He's not going to really say anything bad about President Trump. DeSantis, I think, is going to play it cool with
A little bit
about
of criticism, but not
yeah,
heavy.
not heavy. Same with Mike Pence. Yeah, I think Chris Christie's going to be. It's about going after Trump.
Right.
You know, to show everybody
Well, Pence
he's the
can't
brave
criticize him too
Republican.
much. He was part of the administration.
Yeah,
He-
yeah, yeah. And he's
only January 6th.
yeah, and he says he's proud of what they did, and they should be. The policies were solid. I know I cannot stand going grocery shopping anymore because you get so few items for the price you pay. It's awful. My children are all grown, so I don't have to worry about it. But I can't even imagine people with young children how they're doing it. I can't.
Nobody mentioned Senator Scott.
You know what's so funny? I said last night to Ted, because he's vanilla, right? There's nothing. Everybody says the same thing. Nice guy, right? You'd want him as your best friend. But he's like vanilla.
Do you
Like
think, do you
there's
think
nothing.
he's playing like the nice guy part? Like
No,
he doesn't want to.
he
like,
seems like
you
he's
know?
sincere, a nice
Yeah,
guy, and
alright.
He is. Oh, no, he is. I
And
know
you know,
him.
I bet.
I know he's nice.
I
in
know him,
person,
and
but I
Andrew
feel
knows
like-
him really well.
I think
yeah.
So that's
he-
legit.
yeah,
Even real,
I
and like
think-
Vivek is a really nice guy.
I think he probably hears about the toxicity, not only, you know, he's a senator in
Mhm.
Washington, but about everywhere. You have people who say they can't get along with their family now. We never had that growing up. Even if you had a different party, you know, somebody who was in a different party in your family, you still had Thanksgiving together. You still loved
Oh,
each
yeah,
other.
my family.
Now people are saying they can't even be in the same room.
My family used to have
That's sinful.
unbelievable fights about politics every holiday.
But
Unbelievable
you,
fights.
yeah,
Yeah.
But they, and then they'd all kiss
yeah.
and go home.
You still
And then,
respected their
God
opinion.
forbid something happened, they'd all help each other.
Oh, I lost friends.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I hear
I'm not
that.
friends with people anymore because
Over
of my
and over
politics.
again.
Yeah,
It was
yeah.
kind of
You
enjoyable.
have I don't want to say anything
No, you
too
can- it's fine.
personal, but in the
They find out that I work with you, or you know.
Say I was a
Yeah.
magnet, you know, for other people because they'd all come up and say hello.
Dates from knowing the message.
Oh, you're just saying that.
I have gotten dates from knowing.
You're just
You're
saying that.
saying
Ted.
that.
But are they Republic? Are they Republic? Say.
Oh, they wouldn't go out with Ted if they weren't. I don't
That's what I'm saying.
think it happens anymore. I
No.
think I believe you guys are right.
Mayor, if I
Yeah.
go on a date with
It's
a girl
different.
who's super liberal and I tell her that I work part time for you, or
Well, why would
the
you-
date is because I don't care, I don't lie.
but
I
it's
have
too
nothing to
bad the
hide.
girl can't open
Yeah.
her mind and get to
Right,
know
right.
you.
I have nothing to hide. I
Yeah.
don't care. I don't
I don't know
care.
what's
Yeah.
happened.
but
But I
that
mean,
shouldn't
yeah,
end
yeah,
a date.
yeah.
They
It's
used
too
to be-
bad.
Yeah.
It's
It
too
used
bad.
to be enjoyable to meet with your Democrat friends, of which I had a large number, and debate.
Or how about don't even talk
And
politics with certain people? And,
Yeah.
and
Well,
you,
just the
you have
opposite.
a friend
We
that you go
wanted-
mountain climbing with, still go mountain climbing. Just
Honestly,
don't talk politics.
We'd get together, and we'd almost like prepare. I mean, I'd build up stuff, and he'd build up stuff, and I'd say, "What about this?" And he would say, "What about that?" And what so said this, and so said that.
Well-
and when we'd have a nice steak, we'd have a drink, and we go home.
We live
And
in a
we'd
soft
enjoyed
world.
it. We enjoyed it.
Yeah.
It was, and I thought it was good for us too. It opened our minds a little. Maybe he became a little bit less rigid, and maybe I became a little bit less rigid. And that sure helped me when I had a governor, Democratic city, that I was like that.
Hmm.
If I was like the people now, I don't know if I could have done the things for New York City that I
I
did.
think on your social media person put out a great picture of all these people behind you in signs that said Democrats for Rudy.
Mm.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
mean, I
yeah.
deliberately.
People talk about it. It was
I knew-
legendary
I
how
knew
you
I could-
worked with both parties.
I knew I couldn't get elected without them. I knew I couldn't get bills passed without them. And I thought it was a good thing. But, and you know who I learned that from?
Who?
Believe it or not, Ronald Reagan, who also was a Democrat before.
Most
Ronald
popular
Reagan
president. Yeah.
used to say, and boy, if he could come back up from his grave and say it and just teach all these kids this, compromise is the art of politics.
Well, I was going to say Bill Clinton did the same. He
Yes,
was liked
he
across
did.
the aisle.
He came in the
Democrats and
middle.
Republicans.
Bill- that's
Bill
one
Clinton
thing he
was-
did
was
do.
Was very liked
Yep.
by both parties.
Never, ever mention Bill Clinton in the same sentence with Ronald Reagan.
No.
Or I will have to
I'm sorry, man.
physically attack you.
apologize.
Well,
I
it's
didn't mean to-
it's
I didn't mean to,
9:05,
yeah.
Mayor, and
I'm
my
sorry.
pumpkin awaits, my chariot awaits,
Yeah.
and I got to leave you.
Okay, well, go ahead.
Okay.
Okay.
So thank you for having
Thank
me
you,
on.
thank you, Dr. Maria. We always enjoy having Dr. Maria on. She always is so reluctant with her opinions, and she's always very, very fair-minded about other states other than New Hampshire. Let it be a long time tomorrow. Tomorrow, we're going to come on at our usual 8 o'clock, and we'll prepare everybody for the debate and for the interview. We'll get as much inside information as I can glean, maybe from the Trump people that are. I don't exactly know what's happening with them, Ted. Are the Trump people being allowed in to the debate?
They're not.
No, I thought they were being allowed into the debate, but not into the spin room. I've been in so many of those spin rooms. They're hilarious.
Yeah. They were at first, they were going to be allowed in the room. And then they've since been told they cannot be in there. We'll see.
I remember after the
Right.
first Kerry Bush debate,
My mic was never on.
I was the designated spinner for Fox,
Just now?
and I went on with
Yeah,
Chris Wallace, and Chris looked at me and said,
The light is on.
"How are you going to spin your way out of this?" And I said, "Just wait, you'll see." And I did. I told them that Kerry said the one thing in the debate that will end this election for him. And he said, Kerry wiped him out. I said, you're just looking at the optics. I'm looking at something that will take him out right down to the wire. And he said, what is it? I said, when he went through that whole thing about being asked, what would he do if we had to get involved in a major attack on another country that attacked us? Or he said, well, first I would talk to my aides. The war. And I said that will meant to Americans that he's not going to be president of America. He's going to be president of the. And man, they jammed him with that all the way. I mean, and it really does describe to some extent the big gulf between the Republican Party and the Democratic Party, despite the gap between Bush and Trump. We really are an America First party, and they've become the rest of the world first party, much more even than then. But Kerry's always been, and Kerry is just a non-demented version of Biden, a more intelligent version of Biden. I would never say anybody was as dumb as Biden. It would be a terrible insult. And Kerry is not a dumb man. No one is making that allegation at all. Kerry's views are, I think, very warped, but certainly an intelligent enough human being. But that was a big mistake. And it wasn't a mistake. It probably was a pretty honest appraisal of how they do things. I mean, there are certain things where you make the decision based on your own country. And I actually found when Trump was president, spent a good deal of time in those years traveling around the world before I began representing him. He had great respect, even among people who pretended they didn't like him because they had to be liberal. And he had great respect among the populations overseas. A lot of them would say, I wish we had a leader like that put us first. and not the European Union first. Or, I mean, there's a certain, he had a certain amount of respect that you don't get when you're one of these namby-pamby, let's worry about, carbon and boy, I mean, we don't have time for that right now, but boy, that's blowing up. That whole climate thing, number of papers lately showing you how carbon and the whole idea of greenhouse gas is nothing in comparison to the sun, and may have been exaggerated way beyond any proportion. I mean, of course, it shows up with the results. I mean, basically, we were supposed to be flooded 10 years ago. There's obviously something wrong with their theory, and these recent papers have really kicked the living daylights out of a theory that I've always thought, for my own reasons, which I'm happy to explain to you, has been more of a con job than a scientific theory. But that's for another day and for another matter, and I don't think the Republicans are going to have much of a debate about that. Be interesting to see what they debate about, and here's my advice. Fool them all and be substantive. Don't attack anybody. How about we do the Ronald Reagan 11th commandment? Don't attack another Republican unless he attacks you. That's fair. I mean, like in DeSantis' case, some of the criticisms that he's made of Trump, which I think are wrong, but he has a right to. Trump did attack him. Well, you get attacked, you have a right to attack back. And Trump is the leader, and Trump had his right to attack him because Trump did it really on personal grounds, which is, hey, pal, I supported you. What kind of traitor are you? And in politics, I mean, I'm surprised that more isn't made of that. That troubles me a lot. I mean, when somebody supported me, unless something really went terribly wrong, I wasn't going to ever go again. I wasn't going to go against them, particularly if I didn't have to, and he doesn't have to. I know firsthand by being there and campaigning for DeSantis at the request of Trump, maybe even the command of Trump, that he bailed him out. It was him, and it was his surrogates that he sent there, including me, and I believe Newt and his son, and people who have a certain amount of popularity in Florida. When he ran for governor of Florida, there's no doubt I had a bigger name recognition in Florida than he did. Not even close. If you ask Rick Scott would tell you I helped get him elected. So I mean, Trump used it wasn't just he endorsed him. It wasn't just that he did his obligatory visit or two. He used his whole. He used all the people that are now getting indicted. He used his team to get him in. Come on, you owe in this life. This is when you start touching the real substance of it, man. And that's where you find nothing with Biden. You got a mean, vicious, angry crook. Now, DeSantis isn't that, but there is something missing when you're that ambitious. You can't wait 4 years. Well, in any event, we'll see what happens. But I really will. I would think the guy or woman who does it is the one who lays out an understandable, interesting, and entertaining vision of the future of America. It can't be boring, nerdy stuff. It's got to be, and the way Trump does. Build a wall, tear down the wall, that kind of, you got to make it. I mean, the wall might be a good thing to talk about, particularly the fact that they opened it up now and they've been talking about how it doesn't work. What you have to open it for? I think a lot of time spent on the border and how you're immediately going to secure the border immediately. So I'm looking for the guy or woman who outlines a plan for me of how they're going to deal with the worst situations, that understands them and is ready to act and can, in an interesting way, explain it to me. I don't think they're going to beat Trump. But that's the person that could become number 2, and that's the person that become vice president. So that's my view.
We'll be back tomorrow, same time, same place.
We'll be back tomorrow, and I think tomorrow, by the end of the night, will give us a pretty good picture of the Republican side.
Mm-hmm. Indeed.
And the other thing I will say about all of them before they go into it, although this isn't true of all of them, but it is a strong bench. You could not put together 8 Democrats of that quality.
Mm-hmm.
Couldn't with records like that. I mean, basically, you put 8 failures up there. You'd have a guy running a state that everybody's leaving. I mean, everyone says Gavin Newsom, except the people that are fleeing California in droves, or the people in San Francisco and Los Angeles who are dying. He's ruining the state.
And they're all going to Texas or
I
Republican
mean, I can
state.
see running against him saying, oh, yes, vote for Gavin Newsom. He'll do for the U.S. what he did for California. And then you show all the people that are drug addicts, all the people that are homeless, all the people that are leaving. Well, God bless America. We'll see you tomorrow night. Our purpose to bring to bear the principle of common sense and rational discussion to the issues of our day. America was created at a time of great turmoil, tremendous disagreements, anger, hatred. There was a book written in 1776 that guided much of the discipline of thinking that brought to us the discovery of our freedoms, of our God-given freedoms. It was Thomas Paine's Common Sense, written in 1776, one of the first American bestsellers, in which Thomas Paine explained, by rational principles, the reason why these small colonies felt the necessity to separate from the Kingdom of Great Britain and the King of England. He explained their inherent desire for liberty, for freedom, freedom of religion, freedom of speech, the ability to select the people who govern them. And he explained it in ways that were understandable to all the people, not just the elite. Because the desire for freedom is universal. The desire for freedom adheres in the human mind